On this episode of the program, the battle for C-SPAN, what happened inside the inauguration, and everything you want to know about the January 6 pardons. Claire Meynial joins the show. It's all coming up.
The following is brought to you by Just Another Pilot.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Politics program for January 24th, 2025. Your old pal Justin Robert Young here. We're going to be joined by Claire Meynial of Le Pointe in a little bit to talk about, she was inside Congress for the inauguration, and she's been covering the January 6 cases. She's been out there talking to some of the pardoned January 6 people who have been in jail, what's real, what's not real when it comes to that. But before we begin, I want to have a little conversation with you guys about C-SPAN. Now, full disclosure, I've come to know some of the people at C-SPAN, but I think that they're at a very interesting crossroads right now. If you're not really familiar with C-SPAN, beyond the fact that it's the place that airs Congress, let me give you a little refresher. C-SPAN was launched on March 19th, 1979. It was the brainchild of Brian Lamb. And his vision was to bring, through the magic of television, an unfiltered view of Congress. And so it began with just the House of Representatives. And lo and behold, over the years, it expanded to the Senate, the White House, and general public affairs programming, including a lot of campaign coverage. C-SPAN revolutionized transparency in the American government. And it did so without taking a penny from said government. Because C-SPAN is funded by cable carriage fees. This is something that's going to take a second to set up, so bear with me. Cable was a revolutionary medium because it was incumbent upon the carriers to pay the channels. But every channel gets paid a certain amount of money based on how many subscribers each company, like Cox and Charter and Comcast, have. ESPN was the first with this concept, and that's the reason why they have the highest carriage fees to this day at $7 for their suite of channels. And for several decades, that was a lot of people. The problem is that the cable bundle today is not what it once was. By all available metrics, it peaked in 2016 and it has declined by $10 billion annually every year since. And the likelihood is that it's only going to accelerate. And so that means channels like C-SPAN now face an uncertain future, which is why this Wednesday, a representative and a senator, one Republican, one Democrat, both wrote a letter to the following technological successors of the cable carriage companies, specifically over-the-top, online-only services like YouTube TV, Hulu, and Fubo. Their message was simple: carry C-SPAN. The cost to these carriers would be minimal. Remember when I said that ESPN costs $7 per customer? Well, C-SPAN, for 3 networks that carry gavel-to-gavel coverage of the House, the Senate, and the executive branch, that are currently carrying each and every one of these confirmation hearings that we're going to be talking about a little bit later in the program, per customer to these carriers, it's only 7 cents. Now, this is not all just because these services have a hard heart. There are some technical elements to it. The way that these platforms make extra money beyond subscription fees is to have programmatic advertising that slots in to the predetermined commercial breaks of most cable channels. If you have commercial-free programming like C-SPAN does, it doesn't quite work like that. But if I were to make an argument to Google and Disney, the parent companies of YouTube TV, Hulu, and soon to be Fubo, which Disney just bought, I would say that not only is it a commitment to public affairs programming, It is also good for your bottom line to carry C-SPAN because there are two different generations that are going to be the hardest for you to convince to pay now upwards of $70 to $80 a month to get live channels when they've largely grown up without them. And that's Gen Z and Gen Alpha. But here's something that does matter to Gen Z and Gen Alpha. C-SPAN. C-SPAN has a very important presence on social media where they present unfiltered clips of all the things that they record on their television channels. And when it comes to big news events or the kind of things that political streamers like to really, really make hay about, it's C-SPAN that these streamers watch. C-SPAN means something to a younger generation. As they become more financially independent and more interested in live channel offerings, a platform that has C-SPAN will be more interesting than one that doesn't. But selfishly, I'm a YouTube TV subscriber. When the big speaker vote happened a few weeks ago, I had a real pain in the butt trying to figure out how to get C-SPAN on my big television. That's where I wanted it. I wanted to be able to experience that moment on the biggest screen I had. And I wasn't able to on the thing that I already pay dozens and dozens of dollars per month to. That was kind of a bummer. I want C-SPAN. I want all 3 C-SPAN channels in a multi-view box. And then maybe something non-political down there in the right-hand corner. Maybe ESPN. That way I can get my money's worth. If you, listening to me or viewing this on the internet right now, are a subscriber to YouTube TV, Hulu, or Fubo, well, head on over to that platform and register your request that you would like for them to carry C-SPAN. I think it is good for them, it's good for America, and it's good for one of the great American media treasures, C-SPAN. All right, we're going to do the update and then Claire. This is your update, brought to you by everybody who supports us at TakePoliticsSeriously.com. That's where you need to go if you want to get our bonus shows. One on Sunday, one on Thursday, and everywhere else you would want it to be because it's extra for you, exclusive. It's exclusive. Head on over there right now. $3 a week for the price of a cup of coffee, baby. Come on. What are we doing? Pete Hegseth will likely be your next Secretary of Defense. He has passed the last hurdle before that happens, although he did have his first Republican attrition. Thursday, the vote was 51-49 to end debate on his nomination, despite the fact that new allegations have surfaced, although it has been a bit of a circus with this guy. All Republicans and 2 Democrats, Senators Murkowski and Collins, the concerned twins, they are often called, opposed his nomination for his lack of experience and misconduct. While GOP supporters dismiss the allegations as partisan, Hegseth needs to maintain his support because if he loses one more, then it is Vice President Vance who would have to make the tying vote. And so the question now kind of lands on Mitch McConnell's doorstep. Will he force J.D. Vance to cast the tying vote? He voted to end debate, but rumors had been that he would be a no vote going forward. And let me lay this out for you guys because we're going to have a lot of tight votes in the Senate in Donald Trump's first 2 years. Mitch McConnell is going to be an extraordinarily key vote in the vast majority of those. It's going to be interesting to see where he draws the line. Because anybody who believes they know where Mitch McConnell is going to go, I don't think they really do. I think Mitch McConnell knows where he's going to go. But every other piece of evidence that we've seen with him has been leader McConnell, at least in any kind of recent history. Where is just a guy voting McConnell? Where is I don't really like Donald Trump and, I'm one fall away from being in the hospital, Mitch McConnell? Because I'm pretty sure if you check how many Fs he has to give, you will find a very, very, very empty satchel. But at the same time, let's say he's got concerns with Hegseth, but he's a sharp player, about as sharp as they get in the Senate. Let's say he's like, I don't know, I could save my powder a little bit. This guy's going to pass. It's fine. Do I really want to put my chips down now? Especially if he might want to put his chips down later on Kash Patel or Tulsi Gabbard or RFK Jr., right? There's a lot of things in play. So I'm curious to look at McConnell. To be totally honest, I'm more curious to see Mitch McConnell's votes on some of these than I am whether or not they pass. Because they're either going to pass or they're not. But the really close ones, I'm curious about the old crow, Cocaine Mitch. Here's somebody that is now confirmed. The Senate sent John Ratcliffe to lead the CIA with strong bipartisan support, 74 aye, 25 nay, making him Trump's second confirmed national security appointee. Senate Majority Leader John Thune praised Ratcliffe's experience as DNI and on the House Intelligence Committee. Democrats briefly delayed the vote, but Ratcliffe gained support by pledging to keep the CIA apolitical. I will pause for laughter. During the confirmation hearings, Ratcliffe emphasized his focus on China, calling it America's greatest threat since World War II. He also promised to investigate Havana syndrome affecting U.S. personnel and strengthening intelligence gathering capabilities. The confirmation follows Secretary of State Marco Rubio's unanimous approval. Up next would be Kristi Noem, along with the aforementioned Hegseth. Noem looks like she is set to pass as well. So, hide your dogs. And finally, President Trump signed an executive order on Thursday to release assassination files related to John F. Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, and Martin Luther King Jr. Quote Trump, "This is a big one. People have waited decades for this." He then directed the aide who was helping him sign his executive orders to give the pen that he signed this one with to RFK Jr., his nominee for Health and Human Services Director. "All will be revealed," he told the assembled press. While many of the JFK files were previously released under Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., including 13,000 redacted documents, some remain classified. Says the executive order, "Their families and the American people deserve transparency and truth." The DNI and Attorney General have 15 days to present a release plan for the JFK files and 45 days for the RFK and MLK files, although National Archives made most of them public, but 2 scant years ago. There are still some that have yet to be released. And obviously, whenever you touch on something that has been talked about and hashed through and rehashed in American history, like the JFK assassination, you got a lot of people who know where all the dead ends lie. You know, this has been in the public eye. This has been a public fascination for a very, very, very long time. We'll see. All I'm saying is this. You know, are we going to get audio of, or a transcript of LBJ cracking his knuckles and saying, "All right, CIA, you're on the left. Mob, you're on the right. We got to kill this son of a bee"? No, I don't think so. Some of the more interesting stuff that I've seen chattered about around this is that there are possibly other state secrets that just happen to be a part of this particular situation, because this has been investigated a few times. And so if you are trying to investigate every different lead, then that means that you are talking about elements of the CIA that JFK didn't like. You're talking about Cuba. You're talking about possibly Israel. There was something I saw that the JFK files might indicate the existence of Israel's nuclear capacity, something that is an open secret and has been for decades, but Israel has not disclosed. And if it were revealed in a government investigation, it might complicate arms sales to Israel. So we'll see. All will be revealed, according to Big Chungus. And that is your update. TakePoliticsSeriously.com is where you need to go. 2 bonus episodes each and every week. Thank you very much. If you've already done it. If you haven't, what are you waiting for? Come on. Come on over. Come on. Upgrade to paid. You'll be happy you did. And now, our friend, Claire Meynial. Joining us now to discuss everything that's happened over the past 5 days is somebody who's been at the center of most of it. And we're going to talk about the inauguration, where she was in the room for it. We're going to talk about the J6 pardons, because she had covered a lot of the trials that led up to this. It is the one, the only, Le Poisson, Claire Meynial. How you doing?
Hi, Justin. I'm doing great, I think. Yeah, I'm not sure anymore.
You've been all over the place.
I'm still alive, though. Yeah, so that's good.
Let's start with the inauguration. You were one of the chosen few that got press access to not only, I mean, none of the other people that I even knew got access to the Capital One Center, let alone inside the rotunda where the actual event happened. Bring us inside. What was the vibe as that was going down?
So first of all, I got access. Well, that tells you how little of a life I have outside of work. That's why all my friends make fun of me behind my back and say I work too much. Well, the result was that, yes, I got credentialed because a few months ago, because I was spending so much time inside the Capitol, they asked me if I would like to be inside for the 20th. I think my thinking was probably it's going to be super cold and it might be, convenient to be able to go back and forth. And so we had to fill in an additional background check.
Gotcha.
And so on that day, they only let inside the people who had gone through that additional background check. Because,
Gotcha.
It was very last minute. So, and I was in the overflow. I was not inside the rotunda. I was in Emancipation Hall. So that's anyone who's taken the tour of the Capitol has got to take a ticket down there. It's in the basement, if you get out of there, you see the Supreme Court behind you. And so there were a few more hundred seats there. Trump initially talked in the rotunda, which we saw on the screen, and television, then came down to talk to us in a second inauguration speech, which was actually longer than the first one.
And you were there with some big names. I know that the governors didn't get a chance to get into the rotunda, so
yes.
even the big Republican ones like Youngkin and DeSantis, they were all down with you.
Yeah, the people who really mattered apparently were in the rotunda. So that's Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg,
Jeff Bezos and his girlfriend.
Bezos.
Yeah.
Yes, they were all in the rotunda, and with us, you had the governors, even some people who were instrumental, I think, to Trump's victory, because something like, for example, what Greg Abbott did when he was the first one who had the idea of busing migrants to blue cities. And I think that completely changed the narrative around immigration. And you could, this is something that I have really seen at the Capitol during the hearings, where at some point it was, sorry about that, it was completely... it was considered racist to even talk about the crisis at the border, and at some point when it was moved to the blue cities,
to Chicago and New York and DC,
they were dropping people outside Kamala Harris's house here at the Naval Observatory. And then the hearings changed. Suddenly the Democrats were talking about the fentanyl being smuggled through the border and human trafficking. Just like, whoa, you're talking like Jim Jordan now. And so even those people like Greg Abbott, like Glenn Youngkin, who was one of the first ones who actually run on CRT, if you remember that.
Yep. Got elected on education.
On education. Those people were down there with us. Mayor Adams from New York was also here.
Which is a curious one. Not a Republican yet, but based on some of the
Not
polling
yet.
coming out of New York City, maybe in the offing.
Yeah, so I interviewed him along with a few other reporters, and he refused to say whether he would run as a Republican and whether he was waiting for a pardon also. But yeah, it's one of the things he was probably considering too.
Yeah. So you mentioned that there were a bunch of people that would otherwise probably be closer to the seat of power had it not been moved inside. Whenever you're dealing with A-listers like that, sometimes they can get a little grumbly, a little upset that they are where they are. Was it a celebratory mood? Was it a solemn mood, or was everybody just kind of understanding this was last minute?
It was incredibly celebratory because people still felt they were inside the Capitol.
Gotcha.
Still not that many people. And so what was really interesting, I don't know, I guess the atmosphere is probably a lot more solemn inside the rotunda, but where we were, people were really reacted in real time, and especially reacting to other presidents coming in that we could see filmed. And so it was really interesting to see who they were clapping for. So, for example, of course, the room was dead silent for the Clintons when they came in.
Oh, okay, so no booing, but just
no
not
booing,
the cheering.
but like real dead silent. Same for Pence. They discreetly applauded for Obama, like more than for Pence.
Really?
So, yes.
Well, he was cordial at the Carter funeral, so maybe he's earned a MAGA golf clap.
And Pence is seen as the traitor who did not act on January 6th. So it was really interesting. But yeah, the people were really reacting very loudly, which I think they probably couldn't do inside the rotunda. Same as when I covered Trump's trial in New York, you could see the reactions because I was in the overflow of the general public, and you could feel the reactions, which is not something you could do inside the courtroom itself.
Now, there's been much made about the speech that Donald Trump gave. In fact, I think I was texting you to see whether or not you wanted to go to lunch, and then you're like, I think there's something happening here. And as it turns out, it was Donald Trump coming down and doing what Donald Trump does. I think people had 4 years to kind of forget that Donald Trump is kind of constantly in the middle of a podcast in which he'll just kind of go stream of consciousness no matter what. And when he's the president, it's covered in a different way. But after his otherwise, I think universally understood to be a little bit more optimistic inaugural speech than he did initially. It was not American carnage in the same kind of way. He gave the full Trump when he made his way down to the overflow room to speak there. I assume it was probably because he had a crowd there that he knew he wanted to get excited.
So first of all, I think you and I have heard too many of those speeches because I was live tweeting all the proceedings, and one of my friends and editors in Paris was following all that I was tweeting, and after the end of the first speech, he was like, "This was a completely crazy speech." I was like, yes, it was. It was only the first one. And then he comes downstairs and he starts with, I can tell you, you're something like, you guys are younger, more beautiful and nicer people than upstairs. And I'm going to give you the real speech. And he does the stand-up comedian / podcaster stream of consciousness speech that he usually does. And yes, that's, like, he did not speak about January 6th upstairs. He does at that point when he's with us, and it's a rally speech. It's what he's been doing for. I mean, I've only been covering those speeches for 4 years. I think I must have probably gone to something like 40 Trump rallies, and so it felt extremely familiar. And just the mere fact that it was familiar, just like it shouldn't be. It should be a different kind of speech. It's not he's not campaigning anymore. But he was
The
still.
battle for public perception never takes a day off in the
Yeah.
world of
Yeah.
Donald John Trump, the 47th president of the United States. But let's stay on January 6th, because obviously it happening in the Capitol reminds everybody of that day 4 years, roughly 4 years prior. And then we are reminded far more later that day as the lingering question. You knew that there were going to be some pardons for January 6th people. The question was who, and the answer we got was everybody. Everybody was
Yeah.
going to get a pardon. So this is something that I've very much appreciated your coverage on, because you've actually like spent time at these trials. You've tracked this stuff a little bit closer than I think the average, not only reporter, but really certainly reader. How many people were either on trial or in jail for January 6th, just in general, before we even get to the violent stuff, just in general?
So I wanted to check the numbers just before I talk to you, and the page I've been looking at for 4 years has just disappeared from the DOJ.
Okay.
We used to
Okay.
have, but it's roughly he roughly pardoned a little bit less than 1,600 people.
Okay.
Hundreds took plea deals, and 600 had been convicted and on behind bars. Very few were still in jail. But yes, J.D. Vance had said that obviously the ones who committed violence would not be pardoned, and there was a backlash after that.
Yeah.
And so then I guess, Trump decided that the right thing to do to please the supporters was to pardon everybody.
Yeah. And the political part of my brain, which is the majority of it now, says that, like, all right, you pardon everybody if you want to move past this as fast as possible, because otherwise, if it's all right, I'm going to pardon 1,000, then the question is, okay, so what about the other 600, and what did they do, and did they have a fair trial? And the people that are going to be on your side the loudest are going to be now, you risk having somebody's mom with a picture outside of the White House or something for the next 6 months. So either you piss off the liberals and the Democrats, who are going to be furious that you pardoned the people with violence, or you piss off your own base. And I think he decided to piss off the liberals and the Democrats.
Yeah. So also to be precise, 14 of them got commutations. So it does not erase or delete the conviction. It just shortens your sentence. Like, you're out now. But and this, like, people who were convicted of seditious conspiracy were not pardoned. They have their sentences commuted, and which explains, like, somebody like Stewart Rhodes, who is the founder of the Oath Keepers, has been saying we all deserve a pardon, and he wants a pardon because, among other things, you don't get back your benefits for being a veteran.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the fact that it was a blanket thing, pardons and commutations, has created a lot of chaos here at the DC jail, where you're typically in the DC jail because you're in pre-trial and your case is ongoing. This is why you're here, because then you can go to the courthouse every day. You can be taken there. So, and out of the, I think, 28 or something like that were inside the DC jail, like, most of them were in pretrial. So you need a completely different process. You need to stop the proceedings. You need to tell the Department of Justice, you need to stop prosecuting that case. And so the government has to file a motion to dismiss, and then a judge has to grant the motion. And now Monday was MLK Day also. The judges were not necessarily in the courthouse to sign those orders to release those people from prison. And there has been a complete misunderstanding of how it works. People were like, the families were like, hey, wait, we were told that we're all going to be out on day one, and they're not. And so there is this thinking now that the DC jail is stalling the proceedings, that they're doing it on purpose. There is just a long process too. You don't just get out of jail like that. So some of them went to the Capitol yesterday to try to put pressure on some congressmen that would listen to them.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure.
But this is a city paperwork thing. This is not a.
This is the judges having to sign on them, and a lot of judges have been writing lengthy opinions on it. Like Judge Chutkin has said, this pardon or commutation or dismissal does not erase the blood and feces and tears of that day. They write those long opinions on it. So it's not going to take a couple of seconds. It's just, you don't just walk out of jail like that.
Do we have any sense of how many of that roughly 1,600, did commit violence as opposed to trespassing? Because I would assume the vast majority was trespassing and probably property damage.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I would have to look at the numbers, but I think it was around 100, something like that. There is also a misconception that there were no weapons that day. There were weapons, either just flagpoles, etc. But there were actual weapons. There were lots of actual weapons. So you have charges of people being on Capitol grounds with a weapon. You have that kind of things, and then you're going to run into other problems that are going to be. Your house was searched because of a January 6th warrant, and you had a prior felony conviction, and you were not supposed to have a weapon in your house, but they found a weapon in your house. So what do you do with all those cases? There is a family, a sister and a brother, the Balls. They try to. They have an absconding charge. They try to leave the country. That they didn't not the country, actually not leave the country. They tried to leave anyway, and those charges are not being dropped. For example, the fact what they did on January 6th is being dropped, not the fact of not showing up for court, etc. So you're going to run into all those legal details and stuff, and it's going to take time.
I would only imagine that it's going to take time, because it is. I mean, I don't think anybody would be surprised that the blanket. I don't think that you could have thought that it was impossible that there would be this wide of a scope, but I don't think anybody had it for sure. I thought the general thought was going to be something more along the lines of what Vance said on Fox News Sunday, which was. The trespassing and property damage, but the violence, that would be something separate. And then meanwhile, you've got some of the more.
Sorry. I just realized. Just to be precise, the Ball case. He was rearrested. He was about to be released yesterday and rearrested on a gun charge at the DC jail. The Pollocks are a brother and a sister.
Gotcha.
Who tried to evade. Yeah. Okay. And so those charges are not being dropped.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. So the one dude got released and then rearrested in the lobby.
In the DC jail. Yeah.
That's amazing.
On a gun charge. So that's what they're calling a lawfare. When I was talking to all those people, because I've been spending those 2 days at the DC jail, and they talk about lawfare.
Well, I mean, look, in the best case scenario for any and everybody, there was never going to be a world where you are part of that big of a ugly scene in DC, and DC is going to give you the kindest possible treatment. Now you can say that it on some levels has crossed into different things, and that's certainly the case that I know that they're making to reporters like you. But just from a common sense perspective, you can't imagine that they were ever going to be treated leniently in DC.
Yeah. No, but I mean, there has been, and I know, like my American friends in the courthouse would not necessarily agree with me, but I covered the whole Proud Boys trial.
Yeah.
And so they have the seditious conspiracy, which is why Enrique Tarrio, who's been pardoned, who's out of jail now, got 22 years as being the brains of
As being the ringleader, even though he wasn't even in D.C. for January 6th.
He was not even in D.C., but more importantly, we saw hundreds of messages that they were exchanging on Parler, on by text messages, and we never saw a plan to get inside the Capitol.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, those people didn't know where they were once inside. So then the seditious conspiracy became, you have to see it as meeting of minds. And the conspiracy can even start at, so the first window was broken at 2:11, I think. You can see the meeting of minds on the stairs of the Capitol at 2:09 as being like, okay, we didn't plan this, but we all agree that we have a common goal and we don't even need to talk about it.
Rapid onset conspiracy, seditious conspiracy.
Yes. Which has been seen by many people as, come on.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess in the classical definition, if it's something that a plan that you lay out and you have, in front of you and then you try to execute it, it's one thing, especially when, like Tarrio, who is, not the cuddliest character in the world, but. Yeah,
no, I mean,
I guess because he got what? He got 22 years?
22. And so those guys, like violence. There was also something that was a little downplayed, which was that their obsession was Antifa. Their whole mindset revolved around Antifa. But yeah, we never really saw a plan. And so at some point, the prosecution said, you need to think of it as, it's been snowing outside. You wake up one day and you see through the window that people are pushing a car to help the driver get out of something. You don't exchange a word with anyone, but you put on your boots and your coat and you go help push. This is just a common goal and no word has been exchanged. So that was the definition of seditious conspiracy. Or you're at a red light, the guy next to you roars his engine, you do too, and you start racing. No word has been exchanged. You know what you're going to do.
It seems like a pretty aggressive line for conspiracy, but apparently it was persuasive to the judge and jury in that case. Yeah. One of the other groups that that has been mentioned a lot is the Oath Keepers, and you had said that before. I know that at least one of the stories with the Oath Keepers were that they did bring firearms to the Capitol, but had by and large left them in their hotel room in case.
So they had a QRF, a quick response force. They called it a QRF. That was on the other side of the Potomac in Virginia.
Okay.
In a hotel room, just like a whole weapons stash there, just in case Trump invoked the Insurrection Act.
Gotcha.
And then they would act as a militia for Trump if he invoked that act. But the weapons were not at the Capitol.
They were not at the Capitol. Okay, no. So I do remember that there were weapons in a hotel room, but that is the
it's in Virginia where it's legal.
Gotcha. So, but they were staged for an actual militia event. They were not. They were not deployed into the Capitol on January 6th.
No, and I also covered that trial, though not the whole of it, but a good chunk of it. And there was the whole debate over, at some point they wanted to organize for a boat to cross the Potomac with the weapons in case they needed them, etc. But that was in case Trump would invoke the Insurrection Act.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I don't know if you saw that, but I posted that picture. Stewart Rhodes was inside the Capitol yesterday. So I had to interview him outside the DC jail the previous day because he went to show support, even though he was not in that jail. People are coming. And he was inside the Capitol. He was in the Dunkin' by the cafeteria on the Longworth building, which was like, oh, the guy with the eye patch. I know that guy. Just, having lunch there. And they're trying to lobby members of Congress to get pardons for some who would not because they have other charges. But so it was a bit surreal to interview him in the Dunkin' at the Capitol that day, and then the Capitol reporters who don't typically deal with this kind of people to interview waited for him to get outside. They were much more polite than I was because I did lunch.
Yeah.
They didn't want to do that. They waited for him to get out, and then he gave like a 30-minute
press conference.
Yeah, in the hallways, like you do, when there is a congressman walking by, and then he went to the Cannon Building, which for people who don't know, it's an office building, another office building close to the Capitol, where most of the interviews you will see, you see that gallery, and he was.
That's a fun fact. Whenever you see what you would understand to be the standard, we are talking from Congress. Shot. It is not from Congress. It is from that building, from the various levels of the rotunda in that building.
Yes. So then he went there and he was giving an interview, and there were other Congress people who were completely unaware. I asked a senator from Wisconsin, do you know who that person is who's just giving an interview there? And he was a Republican, and he said, that's completely fine by me. He was also pretty happy with the new subcommittee on January 6th that's about to be launched.
Yeah, the new J6 committee, J6-2, J12, which I don't quite understand. I mean, I don't know, but whatever. They're gonna spend the time that they're gonna spend no matter what.
What's being said is that they want to investigate, among other things, on the role of different agencies that day, and so that's a direct allusion to what's called the Fedsurrection, the fact that the violence was incited by FBI agents who were embedded, infiltrating the protest.
Which is something that's been around for a while, and for those who have followed like the Ray Epps back and forth, that is certainly a part of that, of videos of people saying, of which there are videos of people saying, hey, let's go to the Capitol, and other people chanting Fed at them. So doesn't seem like a great use of time for a conference with a very thin majority, but again, they're going to do it.
And I mean, what's interesting is, if you remember well, on January 6th itself, when the session resumed, Matt Gaetz was the first one to say those were not Trump supporters, but the first theory was this was Antifa. Yes. And then for some reason, Antifa vanished. We're not talking about Antifa anymore, but now it's the feds.
Yeah, I mean, depending on where you've paid attention, that has always been an element of the miasma, and you can, tack on the pipe bombs as an example of like, well, this is
which is an interesting case, by the way. Yeah.
Oh, trust me, Claire, I am very, very interested. I have long, because that was one of the things people always forget about the pipe bombs, like. That there was that time when AOC was like on her Instagram crying about being run out of her office building because of January 6th. And it was a very compelling case. Obviously, she's a charismatic figure. But when you actually did the math on when everything was investigated based on when she was talking, she wasn't lying. She was rushed out of her office. It wasn't because of January 6th, what was happening at the Capitol. It was because of the pipe bombs. And so it was one of those things that I've long been curious. I'm like, are we just not going to care? We're just not going to have any interest in the pipe bombs?
It's wild. Yeah.
So hopefully, I don't know, if there is more light that is to be shared on it, then there's that. I mean, I don't know. The thing that's really, really sad about the entire experience is just that I really wish that we didn't have to have two partisan panels on this. It would be really, really nice if we could have one nonpartisan panel that everybody could have buy-in on. Everybody put your most sober, like not on cable news members of your conference into it. Let them dive in, quietly find the information, and then publish a report. But I was talking to a friend of mine who's in the government. We were lamenting about this exact thing over the weekend while I was in DC, and it's just kind of sad to realize that something like the 9/11 report is just it's that's the exception. You know, 9/11 was so scarring that the government actually acted in a nonpartisan way, where now it's just, all right, so we're going to find out X amount plus hyperbole from the first January 6th committee, and now we're going to find out Y amount with, you know, however much hyperbole on the right side of it. And I guess maybe we can like one of those meal kits you get from a podcast advertisement. We'll just mix it all together ourselves and see if there's a nutritious dinner in there.
Yeah, so yesterday when I was following around Stewart Rhodes inside the Capitol tonight, and I ended up at the Cannon building where he was giving his TV interview, I walked past what was the room where I covered all the January 6th committee hearings, which is now, and I guess it's recent, called the Speaker Nancy Pelosi caucus room, which is something I had not noticed before. So, and I guess it's recent because she's, you know, since she's not the speaker anymore.
Yeah.
But this was such a well-crafted series of events. Very, like, we had special credentials, they had all those witnesses, everything could be reduced to a tweetable video clip, you know.
Yeah.
It's been, so I don't know if the next one will be as
Well, we'll see. I believe they hired a television producer for the first.
Yes, exactly. Yes,
for the first J6 thing, and they
did.
were in prime time.
Yes.
For two of the hearings. I don't think that they really used that time particularly well, but they were certainly in prime time.
And also, so as you know, I'm also very much outside of DC, and it was really interesting to realize when I was in Arizona, it was not prime time for them. So they were like, "Oh yeah, what was that deal again with the?" Is this still going on? It was really interesting.
Well, you know, and there was some public opinion polling that came out yesterday showing that, you know, Joe Biden's pardon of his son Hunter and his family in the waning days of his presidency was less popular than Donald Trump's pardoning of the J6 people. And, you know, that was a gas to a lot of people that, like, oh my God, but January 6th is this, you know, ugly stained day in American history. And no doubt it was, you know, one of the ugliest things that I've certainly ever seen in terms of the democratic transfer of power. But also, if you're not in D.C. and you're not in the government, it was an ugly thing that happened during COVID, which nobody wants to think about. Everybody just kind of wants to be done with it, and whatever happens, like I don't think that there was a satisfaction outside of D.C. or in the super partisan elements of our discourse that cared that Enrique Tarrio was in jail for 22 years. It wasn't like it was like Khalil Sheikh Mohammed after 9/11, where people were like, good, I hope he rots in hell, and I'm so upset about this that I'm going to commit to the military to go fight for the cause of America's defense abroad. It was an ugly thing that I think probably ranks around the level of like a mass shooting or something like that. But it's not that in DC. In DC, it's still extraordinarily personal and very, very visceral.
Yes. And so all the trials I covered, one thing I'm always fascinated at is the jury selection. And jury selection for the Proud Boys, I think, took 12 days. And you know, they ask the usual questions. Have you ever worked in government? Yeah. This is DC.
Everybody's working in government. Yeah.
Are you a lawyer? Do you have a lawyer in your family? Do you remember January 6th? Where were you? How do you feel about January 6th? And you had a lot of people who were saying this is our 9/11.
Yeah.
So, and you were a lot of people so they were also asked, are you familiar with the Proud Boys? And some would say, so there was this one woman who said they belong under the jail, which means...
Jeez,
being, you know, dying there because you spent your life or being killed there. And the judge was like, excuse me? But at some point, they couldn't find anyone who seemed sort of neutral. And so the judge would be like, Okay, I get your point, but could you still be fair and impartial if just following the facts? And the lawyer's like, Your Honor, he just said our client is a terrorist and a fascist, and
Yeah.
Um, no, I'm not saying that those people have not been really studying the case, etc. It was a pretty compelling case, but we saw all those messages that proved that the mindset was there, the violence, the 1776, the we're going to be a communist country if you don't if we don't take it back, etc. But yeah, I mean, when they say it's difficult to have a jury that is not heavily Democrat in DC, it's also true.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, obviously that was a huge part of the feedback that I saw of people on the right that were upset that JD Vance said that the people who committed violence would not be getting out was largely centered on that, on the idea that it's like, well, what are we considering violence? These trials were unfair. It was a biased judge and a biased jury, and all of these charges were trumped up beyond what they really were. Now, obviously, there are some people in the clips of January 6th that you see where there is, some stuff where people should be going to jail. where when you hit a cop with a flagpole, usually you face repercussions. It doesn't matter if you're in DC, if you're in the Capitol, if you're in your local Main Street. That's usually something that earns you a little time in the Hooskow. But
But now what they're saying is, so this goes back to the Fedsurrection.
yeah.
They're saying they were provoked.
If it was
like
fruit of the poison tree, if they were
exactly.
led in by people,
Yeah.
and then made to get into fights, then they should not be charged for it.
And
Which,
I even heard people say, because you remember the cops being pepper sprayed. You've seen those images of them going back to the tunnel trying to.
yeah,
And they say, well, they sprayed themselves, which honestly would.
seems a little ridiculous. Seems a little ridiculous. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, my take on January 6th has always been that, we were just in the Capitol. We saw all the anti-scaling fence that went around the entire city. It made traversing the city to be impossible. I was unable to get to my favorite bar, the Tune In on Capitol Hill, simply because the Tune In
Oh,
on
okay.
Capitol Hill, simply because I couldn't figure out the hamster maze that was made of DC, and I was on the wrong side of the Capitol. I was
Yeah,
at the.
I was biking the whole time, but it was a little cold to
But it's
ride
like
here.
if that anti-scaling fencing is up during January 6th, January 6th doesn't happen.
Yeah.
The storming of the Capitol quite simply doesn't happen. What I have seen from investigations of the day is that Cap Metro understood that when liberals were protesting during COVID, it tended to be a lot of property damage, so you had to put up a bunch of anti-scaling fencing. When conservatives were protesting, you had to worry about street fights. Like that's what wound up happening more, is that you would have one fight would turn into a big fight, and then all of a sudden you got a bunch of people fighting in the middle of the street. So that's why they had a lot of plainclothes cops. They had a lot of people that were in the middle of things, but they didn't have a lot of barriers up, because usually conservatives didn't break property. We were in the day where conservatives were in the mood to break some property,
Yeah.
and now we're here.
So I was there that day, right? I was by the West Terrace, where people were trying to climb on the wall. Not great climbers, by the way, so a lot of them were falling. So then on my way back, I'm interviewing a guy who, and by the way, I've been trying to track him. He, of course, has never answered me ever since, but I was trying to see if he was ever arrested. He was
Charged?
not. Yeah, never charged or arrested. He got away with it. But anyway, he was from Texas, from Houston, and he was telling me how happy he was to have been there, and that they would come back with weapons. And I mean, the speech was really, really violent, and like, we're really gonna come back with weapons if,
Yeah.
Biden is inaugurated. And he was staying in a Trump hotel, and we get to the hotel, and it was freezing on January 6th in 2021, and not as cold as this was, but really cold. And he says, "Do you want to finish the interview in the lobby?" I'm like, "Yeah, I would love to," but the guards would not let me in because I was not a guest at the hotel. I was not staying at the Trump hotel for $2,000 a night that night. It was as a much cheaper place.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting because so this guy was like, "Oh, she can't come in. That's too bad." And the guy was like, "Yeah, I know. I don't know why we were told to be so tough on you people. You're all really good and peaceful people. I don't know what." And it's like, so I had not been covering the country for long at that point. I was like, yeah, he has no idea what's been going on.
Yeah.
But now I don't think so. Now I just think it's, that, in law enforcement, initially at that time, there was still this opinion that white and conservative people couldn't be violent.
Well, and certainly we are now at a point, I think I said on Substack on their notes feature that we're at the point now with January 6th where I think everything that could happen has happened. And it's not to say that it won't be a talking point going forward. It assuredly will. It just, I think we're out of new tricks for it. We're out of new developments for it, unless somebody were to come back in and say, no, rearrest everybody who's been pardoned. But I don't think that that's legal now. I mean, you never know. You never know. We're in strange days when it comes to pardons and commutations. But I don't know if you can revoke a pardon.
I have no idea. I don't think so. But because the real pardon, I think it deletes the conviction. So
yeah. So you're done. You're done. It's over.
The record stays here. It's. I don't think all the complaints and statements of facts will disappear from the internet or the archives here, but the person is considered not convicted. So,
yeah, there we go. So what are you focusing on now in the 47th administration of the United States, Donald Trump's second? What are the big things that you're looking at aside from talking to everybody there at the DC jail?
So I'm going to keep an eye on this first because I want to see, some people had lots of convictions before.
Yeah.
So you might just see some people who are going to go back to jail for completely different charges. But yeah, obviously the immigration issue, the deportations, to see that happen. As you know, I spent some time in Springfield, so those people still have TPS, but who knows what's going to happen to TPS. And then something I was not expecting to cover, and that's very different kind of coverage, is the influence of Elon Musk, and I should try to have also a European perspective on this because it's been weighing a lot on European affairs.
Mega has now dawned for Elon Musk. Make Europe great again.
Yeah, like be it, in favor of AfD in Germany, which, far right is in Germany for us has a different kind of meaning.
Yep.
So yes, I that's really not something I was expecting, but this is going to be a big one, I think.
Well, we will make sure that we continue to talk to you about it. Claire Meynial from Le Poix, thank you so much for joining us.
And the book, here it is.
Oh, there we go. Yes. No, plug the book.
Yeah. So like the War of Americas. So it's about the divisions and.
That's amazing. Where can people get it?
Online, of course.
Okay.
Because there are French bookstores here in DC, in New York. But other than that, of course.
There we go. So there, for all of our French language speakers, please pick it up. Make sure you support Claire. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Justin. See you very soon. I'm so sorry I didn't get to see you in DC.
I know. Yeah, it was too busy. Too busy. I gotta come when it's just everyone's bored. That's the
nothing is
only way to
happening
do it.
maybe in 4 years. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, exactly. And that'll wrap it up for us today. Politics, hosted by me, Justin Robert Young, joining you from Austin, Texas for Dog and Pony Show audio. You want to email us? It is just so simple. theyoungamerican@gmail.com. We're going to skip where you can find us, except for YouTube. YouTube is politics.com. You can support us with a one-time donation, paypal.me/payjury. Venmo is Justin-Young-20. Cash App is PX3Cash. And you can hit me off with anything you like in the mail. P.O. Box 153184, Austin, Texas 78715. Again, that is Post Office Box 153184, Austin, Texas 78715. Of course, you can only get our bonus content at TakePoliticsSeriously.com. Paying members get 2 bonus episodes each and every week. You know, look, it breaks down to $3 a week. You charge you $12 a month, no matter what. But you can also get this for $99 for the entire year. You save a little coin if you know that you're going to want to be involved in it. And at this point, if you bought in now, then you're not only getting everything that leads into the New York City mayoral race, the Virginia race, but we're into the midterms if you buy in right now. If you get an annual right now, we're into primary speculation. People are announcing. Just saying. It's a good investment for you, for your health, for your family. But if you want your name read on the show, there's only one way to do that, and that is our Titanic founding tier. L3PO, Peepaw, Scott, Middle-Aged Mike, Tom, Sarah Jeannie, Jeremy, Pro Idiot, Chiller Tomatoes, Oh Yeah, It's Adam, Neil, AB Puppy, Dr. Whiskey, Michael, Fat Tony's PJs from New York, Will, The Borge B, Matthew, Matt, Andrew, Edwin, Sam, Andrew, Phil, Edison, Devon, Paul, a dog named Checkers, Gloria Young, my very patient mother, Trucker, John, Berkeley Stephen, and Zombie Doc. If you want your name at the end of these episodes, well, friends, only one place to do it. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. Politics.com. Any URL that dances underneath your fingertips, well, friends, it's all going to bring you to the same ballroom. That's our Substack. By the way, I was featured in Substack press release. There's a new fund for people moving over from other platforms. So if you want the incentive to come on over, join the team, well, I would encourage you to do it. I would. I believe in Substack. I believe in this platform. You know, if you don't want a platform that's all up in the video, all up in the song, come to Substack. Next week, we're going to have great guests because I met a bunch of people at the Substack party. So I'm going to get them all on the show. We're going to recreate the party week by week. It's going to be a good time. And we got all the confirmations that are still going. The new round of confirmations is really going to begin here. We're going to get Cash. We're going to get Tulsi. It's going to be a good time. Till then, this is your old pal Justin Robert Young saying, some shows talk about politics, others talk about politics, and still more discuss politics. But this is the only show that dares discuss. Three.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Dog and Pony Show audio.